Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Stool podcast, a podcast for woodworkers and the maker community in general. This is episode number 20. My name is Robin Lewis from robinlewismakes.com. I'm joined by Joey Chalk from King Post Timberworks.
Hello.
And Jordan Crawford from Periodic Furniture Studio.
Hello.
And today we're also joined by a very special guest, Bryan Cush from Sawdust Bureau. How are you, Bryan?
I'm very well. How are you?
Good. That's good to hear. All right, so we live stream the recording on YouTube every Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time or UTC plus 10, or you can watch or listen to it later on YouTube, iTunes, or SoundCloud. I want to say hello to everyone in the chat. We'll get your comments towards the end of the show, but please feel free to chat amongst yourselves, the idea being that this is also a place for people to meet. And of course, with Bryan being here, we'd love to get some questions over to him from you guys if you have any. So just a couple of announcements before we get into the show. The first one, obviously, is the time change. We're now doing 7 p.m. for majority of Australia. This has all had to change with the clocks, which changed over Easter. So from now on, the show will be at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And then on to the main part of the show. So I mentioned earlier that we're joined by Bryan from the Sawdust Bureau. Bryan, thank you very much, first off, for being on the show. So
that's great. Thanks very much for the invite.
No problem. I wanted to start off quickly by giving a bit of an intro into Bryan and what he does. So Bryan has a master's degree in architecture and spent about 6 years working in an architecture firm. So he's the real deal. He's got the qualifications and the piece of paper to say so. So I think we're all going to definitely trust everything you tell us tonight, Bryan. And then in 2014, he decided to put aside that skill and start his own company. Bryan, is it the Sawdust Bureau or just Sawdust Bureau?
No, just Sawdust Bureau. Yeah.
Sawdust Bureau. Okay.
Did you purposely choose a name that nobody can spell?
I did. Maximize Googleability, and nothing else came up until some building in America now called the Sawdust Memorial something, and now that comes up all the time. But no, it was just I wanted a name that wasn't my own name.
Yeah, absolutely.
The reason I wanted something that was memorable, but yeah, I've actually found the sheet that I wrote back all the potential business names on, and there are some shockers. So I'm happy that I sort of settled on something that I'm still not hating.
That's cool.
There is a link in the video description down below for those of you watching live where you can go to Bryan's website and have a look. So Bryan's originally from Belfast, but now works just outside of Melbourne. And he was shortlisted by the Australian Furniture Association for the 2015 Emerging Furniture Designer of the Year for his work on a piece called I'm not quite sure how to say this, Bryan, so you might need to help me out. The Osberg Bench.
Yep, Osberg Bench, yep.
Yeah, which is, you'll be able to find that on his website. So what I thought we might do, what we do in every show, Bryan, is we start off by talking about what we're working on at the moment. So would you like to take us away and just give us a brief rundown of what you've done in your shop over the last week?
Sure. So I usually try to keep one big project on the go and a couple of small ones, but it kind of just depends with orders when they come in. But the minute I have the remnants of a bed sitting on the ground here, I have one of my pinch benches on this bench, and then I also have a massive boardroom table, which is currently occupying about half my shop.
Cool.
So a few different things. Just trying to be jumping between one and the other and get them all to the stage where you're finishing at the same time. It's a little bit awkward, but
I figure now's a good time as any to ask. You have a train track running through your workshop.
I do have a train track running through my workshop. So it's a pity that it's dark now, but the two big double doors here lead out to a canal, and the canal was it connected down to the docklands. So gunpowder was brought up in shells.
Awesome.
The canal.
Is that just the other week, or is like
1870s? 1870s. So it's a seriously old building by Australian standards. That's pre-Australia. It was when Victoria was a colony. Yeah. So they weren't allowed to make their own gunpowder. They had to import it and stockpile it. And then I think just after they built this huge gunpowder magazine. The British government changed the laws and allowed them to make it, so it was kind of defunct after a few years. But it's an incredible complex that has been empty since. Parts have been empty since the 80s, others the 90s. My workshop didn't have any doors on it for the last 25 years. And then Working Heritage and Renew Australia, they sort of look at old heritage buildings that are empty and try to put artisans into them and kind of a new life. So yeah, I was fortunate enough to get this space a year and a half ago. And the first step was putting in the floor because the train tracks were obviously a pretty tricky trip hazard. So I put in a floating floor, and then the groundsman that still maintains the place found this old trolley that was one of the original gunpowder moving trolleys. So I just welded my old workbench to it.
That's amazing.
So
that is cool.
Move 200 kilos by myself, which is good.
Obviously super useful.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot of effort trying to get the curve right on the track because the front wheels don't follow the rear wheels as it goes around the corners and all that kind of stuff. But the effort was definitely worth it. Like now that it's got this dining table on top of it, or this boardroom table on top of it, I'm kind of missing it, using it in my work. Sort of, I bring timber onto it, I dress it, I wheel it back and forth through the workshop, and now it's occupied for the next week.
Seems like a really good idea.
For those of you who are listening on iTunes, basically Brian's got a mini train track with train in his workshop, which is probably something not many people I think can boast about.
The workbench on wheels is great, but knowing, like, I know the exact path that this takes, so I can sort of put things on the floor and know that I'm never going to catch an edge on them.
Yeah,
that's one of the nice things about it.
It's a pretty cool building. There's a place in Perth here which they tried to do something similar to. It was the old rail works in Midland. But when they started to kind of renovate it for the artisans to take over, they found there was too much like diesel pollutant.
Oh, really?
Like under the slabs because it had soaked through, so they never got off the ground. But similar era. It's really cool.
Yeah. If you go on Google and search for Jack's Magazine, you'll get the aerial view of it. And the internals of the main buildings where they actually stored the gunpowder are absolutely incredible. And they're not being used for anything. They're trying to get commercial operations in there, but it's a tricky site. So more the better for me.
What are you up to, Jordan?
Okay, let's go, Jordan.
Me, what am I up to? So when I got into Perth from my trip, I came into the workshop for one day before I fell sick with tonsillitis, but it was a productive day with lots of people like just randomly walking in and ordering and commissions and stuff. So it was kind of cool. So I got two fresh commissions the day I got back, which was nice. But I've been out of action because of tonsillitis and then a cold. So I've only really started working today, where I took delivery of about 75 lineal meters of Vic Ash for 2 dining tables. I've got it all cut to rough length now, so I'm just going to let it kind of acclimate over the weekend before I start milling it. And I also put in a little bit of a new floor in the front part of my shop. So it's kind of like Joey's plywood floor, except not as fancy because it's just particle board. But
whose plywood floor?
Yours.
I don't have a plywood floor.
What?
In the bathroom, that's plywood, isn't it?
Oh, in my bathroom. Right.
Yeah, you got a plywood floor somewhere.
No one cares about any of your other floors, Joey. It's only ever the bathroom that people want to talk about.
My workshop is like the worst floor.
Oh, no, I meant in your house. Yeah, sorry, in your house. But yeah, it's cool. But no, not much. I've been out of action, so not a huge amount this week, unfortunately. What about you? Who's going next?
I'll go. What have I been doing? Had a bit of a slow week work-wise, with some clients wanting jobs to be postponed a little, and so I've had to essentially we spent a week of cleaning up, rearranging, shifting machines. I've actually increased my workable area in the workshop by a considerable amount, which I'm pretty happy about. I've been working on this extension dining table, and so I've been trying to get that sorted out, and I think I finished it today. We'll find out tomorrow if the finish has worked out. And I'm super happy about how the sliding mechanism has worked out. You can do it with one person, which is awesome. So lift up the table one end, and there's enough slidability that it slides without pulling the whole table along. So
I really like the base, how the base extends with it.
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure I've seen it before, but not registered. But this is the first time I've seen it in detail, and I really like it.
Yeah, I've made it before. I made some mistakes the first time. It was probably about a year and a half ago. I did the same thing, and I was having to use carry at the time, which is like essentially as dense as pine. It was very difficult to have that sliding dovetail work without binding all the time. And now we're using white oak. It's very hard, and it just is going to start burnishing itself to a harder surface.
Yeah.
And so that sliding mechanism is only going to get better, I think. So, really happy with that. So yeah, that's about me.
Cool.
I have been working on my bathroom renovation. It was pretty much the entire Easter long weekend. I had all these great plans of I was going to be onto waterproofing by the end of the weekend, and I'd got as far as pulling down maybe 3 sheets and building the tub frame. But it's just this really annoying thing. Like, as someone who's not a builder, every single step is, well, I didn't expect this to happen, or I didn't expect this to happen. So I'm getting through it, slowly but surely. But yeah, it's just taking a lot longer than I wanted to. I had the plumber come in yesterday and roughen all the pipe work, so I'm officially good to go again.
Sweet.
So this weekend I'll be back to probably going to be sheeting this weekend.
I was going to say no weekend for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no weekend. Massive quotation marks these days.
Did your tub lift give enough room for the plumber? Or was it?
Annoyingly, so there's this thing called a plumb dinger, which is what they use when they build new homes. So they put in this plumb dinger, so when they pour the slab, so that when the builder puts the bath in, he's got a bit of wiggle room.
Right.
I didn't actually need to go up for that plumb dinger because we just put the bath in place, drilled the hole, pulled the bath out. We could have just dropped a straight piece of 50 mil PVC straight down.
The floor. Yeah.
Exactly, with maybe 50 mil clearance. But so it is a bit higher than it needed to be. But at the end of the day, it's I think it's about 480 or 500 high, which is about.
Oh, it's all right.
It's about normal for a bath, so it's not too bad. And then other than that, I've got a stack of weatherboards behind me, which I'm busy painting. I've done both sides now, so I can get those up onto the wall of the workshop outside as soon as I have a chance. So yeah, that's been pretty much it.
Cool.
All right. Before we get on to the topic, Bryan, one of someone in the chat, Dirk from Sumo's Project, has asked, did Bryan have an ad on YouTube a while back?
Yeah, I was approached by Hewlett Packard. It's a pretty odd thing, and I obviously didn't get paid for it, but now I never have to buy printers or printer ink again, so that's a bonus. But they told me that there is a decent sort of media spend behind it, so that was the reason why I did it, and they gave me some really nice footage out of it. So yeah, I had friends in the UK see it, in Sweden, Spain, so it was really weird. But
so what were you advertising?
It was a wireless printer that has an app, so you can print from wherever you are. So that was the point of difference. It was a really, really good printer.
And sorry, so they did promote it here in Australia as well. Well, I guess they must have, because Dirk saw it.
It was like YouTube pre-rolls, and I think they did a little bit of cinema as well.
Oh, that's awesome! Wow,
I like that you said it was an awesome printer. Is it no longer?
Yeah, no comment. Okay. Printers have a lifespan, is what I've found.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, it lasted me 4 years.
All right, that's all right.
It's pretty good. It still prints, but it doesn't print wirelessly.
Ah,
yeah.
Fine.
The function of the wireless printer is no longer wireless.
I wasn't going to say this.
But yeah, good spot.
So the topic is meant to be, will be, but I'm sure we're going to go off on tangents. I managed to catch Bryan. You had an interview, I think, last week or the week before with, who was it?
It was Desur, online university.
That's right. And
University of Canberra.
So I caught that. It's a great interview, and you you told your story relatively quickly about how you got into furniture making from architecture, and I thought that was a pretty unique way of how you went about doing that. And so the topic, I think, would be good to kind of elaborate how you went from a professional's job to being a creative maker, although that your job had probably quite a lot of creativity in it anyway. But now, and then transitioning to kind of solo person, making your own stuff. So we could start going over that, and then I'm sure we'll just start running into all sorts of stuff.
Okay. So yeah, I studied architecture for 7 years. I had a fair bit of interest in design and making growing up. I did design and technology at school, favorite subject. My grandfather was an architect who became a furniture maker, who became a builder.
Okay.
So there was good genes there, maybe. It's funny because on my mother's side, there's the creative making side. And on my father's side, it's completely the opposite. Like, he actually got kicked out of his woodworking class at school for endangering himself and other students. So, it kind of sparked a bit of an interest in my childhood. I would make the old bent balsa airplanes, the ones you can actually fly. I'd make them with my grandfather. Then at university, I was always kind of more interested in the model making side of architecture than maybe the sitting at a computer and spending, umpteen hours modeling something up.
Yeah.
So from there, I studied in Glasgow, and then I studied in the Netherlands at Eindhoven, which was fantastic, incredible model making workshop. Like, are we talking about 15 times the size of my shop right now? Every piece of machinery, all your materials were free. It was just, the Dutch education system is on another level. And then I came to Melbourne Uni, and it was a bit more of an old school education again. But as part of my master's, they have a timber furniture workshop that was run by Hamish Hill, who's a pretty respected woodworker in Victoria. And I did that, loved it, then completely forgot about furniture.
Right.
Graduated, started a job in an architect's that I really liked. Tandem Design Studio was the company.
That's here in Melbourne.
In Melbourne, yeah. So the two directors had both worked on Federation Square for another architect, and then decided to start their own practice. So they were pretty fresh when I think they were maybe only on their third or fourth project when I graduated and joined them. So it was a really young, fun practice to be in. It was hardworking, but it wasn't like my friends that were working for other architects were getting sort of slammed. It was like weekends, You work Saturdays, you work Sundays, you get paid the same. It was just stupid. Whereas these guys had a really good work ethic. It was a nice team. It was 50-50 gender split, which in architecture at the time was very unusual. Now it's becoming more common. But I don't know. I don't know whether it was the clients that I had. I really liked the jobs that I was working on, but maybe it was the clients. I had some issues with town planners that I won't mention which councils, but
difficult.
It's really tricky being lectured about aesthetics from someone who doesn't have any training in an aesthetic degree, and being told this is what looks good, and then you look at what else has been built in the suburb.
Yeah,
you're like,
that's not right.
So there was a lot of frustration with that, with budgets being tighter and tighter. Like this was GFC time. So we were fortunate enough that we had enough work that nobody got laid off, and the boss decided to put everybody down to 4 days a week. Okay. So it was quite a nice environment still to work in. But I just felt as though something was lacking. I didn't want to be stuck at a desk for the rest of my life. I then took 18 months out to travel with my wife, and we spent a bit of time in Africa. We drove we tried to get from Cape Town to Cairo, but then all the Arab Spring kicked off. So it was just a real adventure and properly away from the environment that we were in. She works in advertising, I worked in architecture, and we're like, right, let's do something completely different. It was when I was traveling, I was like, I really should make furniture again. I should find some way of getting back into it. Then we came back to Australia, and I went back into my old job, and she went back into her old job.
Good old
and
safety.
Nothing changed. Yeah. It was like a mirage. It's like, what the hell just happened? Yeah. But I think it was a friend of a friend said, they heard about these spaces that were being available for rent in an old wool store. The rent was cheap. It was like $300 a month or something like that.
Yes,
What?
It was tiny. It was like 4 meters by 4 meters.
Oh, right. Okay.
It was 10 minutes from my office in the city. So I would go into work, get something to eat, and then go up to my workshop and spend evenings there. And it was just kind of gradually portioning off my salary, working out what tools I needed. My uncle up in Queensland sent some of his tools down. And it was a pretty slow process. And I wasn't really making that much stuff. It was more just playing with techniques,
Right.
Going on YouTube, heaps, forums, reading books. I think I probably only made about 2 or 3 pieces of furniture in the first year of having my workshop.
Yeah.
That was one of my other questions is, so you've been like as a business for about 4 years, as I understand it. And your progression seems to be huge. You obviously had a decent skill set from the get-go, from the training you had. Were you actually trained in traditional type fine furniture making, or did you literally discover how to teach yourself all these different elements in that time?
The Melbourne Uni course, the timber furniture design, was like kind of a basic, like a 101 of entry level fine. Maybe it's not fine furniture, but I still don't consider myself a fine furniture maker. Like I'm a maker. I don't hand cut dovetails. Like I would love to have the time, but just as a commercial viability, I haven't been able to find the clients. They might exist, and I'd love them to, but I don't know. No, I think it was just I'd try a technique and I'd try to implement it in a piece of furniture, and then the next piece of furniture I'd try something different. And I think it was just through that process of making loads of mistakes along the way that I learned. I don't think if I'd gone to a TAFE or a woodworking school, I don't think I would have learned the way that I have learned. Like I've learned quite organically.
Yeah.
What I've enjoyed.
I think that organic learning has a lot more to offer than it does in a TAFE environment, because I did go to TAFE and did furniture design, which back then was 3D design. Mm-hmm. And while the course itself promises that, you'll get to learn how to design and make your furniture, you're kind of limited to your shop teacher, because they're going to go the way they want to build this thing.
Yep.
And they'll take you on their journey throughout it, when really if you're just playing around with different techniques and learning, I could actually do it this way and give me this cool effect or whatever, these old boys that are, they're coming from a trade or another school, they don't necessarily have those little insights that you learn from trial and error. They just have insights that they've learned and they've stuck with it for years. Mm. I mean, obviously it's helpful, but I don't think it's the best way to do it. At a TAFE, it's better to kind of get a mentor from a really, really good maker already, in my opinion.
Did you have a mentor, or were you just going to do this and stuff everyone else?
Pretty much winged it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, apart from Hamish, who I still keep in contact with, he's no longer at Melbourne Uni, and they've kind of changed the course a little bit. It's still part of the architecture degree, but a friend of mine who was also a graduate of the same program is now running it, and it's a bit more taking like real cutting edge technology and putting it back into furniture, like traditional furniture making techniques.
Yeah, cool.
So the furniture that these students are producing would just blow your mind.
Yeah,
like absolutely. This is their first piece of furniture they've ever made.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Table. It's worth having a look on Instagram. And XLab is what it's called at Melbourne Uni. I mean, there's a coffee table there that's like a $15,000 piece.
Wow.
It's beautiful. So again, they haven't been schooled by Adam in a way that this is fine furniture and this is the only way to learn.
Yeah.
Kind of feed them little bits and pieces and send them off and to investigate, and they'll make prototypes of a little model and piece, and then they will start scaling that up into the furniture. And I think that's the best way to learn. Otherwise, your stuff just ends up looking like everybody else's pieces.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So in that process of you learning, essentially teaching yourself, and so I think, if I remember rightly, you made were kind of commissioned by a friend pretty early on to make a piece, and then you've had to make it again, like a long sideboard.
Yeah, the Osberg bench. Yeah.
Yeah. So that, for as an example, you made one quite fairly early on, and then you've had to make it again. Do you look back at the first version, and obviously you're happy with it, but do you think, well, yeah, man, I'm not going to make it like that again because, completely, you should have done it backwards or something completely isn't quite right? Or were you pretty happy with first go out and then just copied it the next time?
The design, that was probably about the fourth or fifth iteration that it went through.
Right.
And it was more me, I'd be sketching things and modeling things up and sort of knocking certain pieces out by myself, and then I'd take the best pieces, the best renders or whatever sketches to the client, and then we'd have a conversation. So there was a huge amount of time in that. That was when I was still working as an architect as well. So that was 5 years ago. And it was just evenings and weekends. So there was maybe 50, 60 hours of design work went into that piece.
Oh.
So I'm actually pretty happy with the design and the proportions and the structure of it. And it hasn't, it's aged pretty well.
Awesome.
The piece that I made for that client, the only thing that I changed was the way in which I made it. So again, just fast tracking things, making jigs as opposed to doing things by hand.
Yeah.
Which again, as my skill level sort of increases, I find that I change all my pieces.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they're just small tweaks, it's just efficiency.
So being that you have the architectural background, when you design a piece, are you designing it, like fully drafting it out and having plans so you could really just envision it on paper before you even start making it? Or do you kind of go from a concept sketch and then start making?
I'll always start as a sketch. So I kind of believe, or the way I was taught was about using a diagram as an actual design tool as opposed to just using it as an information tool. Right. So I would kind of say that every piece of mine has, I'm trying to create a shape that's different. That can be, like my pinch bench, for example, is, you can draw it very, very quickly and it's a very simple shape, but the complexity lies within the piece and you've got to sort of discover those complexities. So yeah, I would generally start and try to have a big idea or a shape or something, and then that might I'll sketch it in 3D, but then it'll become a 3D model in computer, and it will be developed to the nth degree in the computer. And I use a software that I learned in architecture that I would not recommend for anybody. But
I can imagine.
It's scripted so that it will spit out cut lists and volume and cost a piece.
Yeah, right. So you will work just from a cut list after you do spend however many hours designing, print out a cut list, and that's your Bible. That's
it. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's a confidence thing, but I like the security of it. Taking that cut list, going to a timber yard. I don't have the room to bulk buy timber. No. And I kind of like the idea as well that a client, if they want to come to the timber yard with me, I can do that, and I can pick the pieces by hand.
Yeah.
Or if it's like a lot of eucalypts are obviously quite red, and a lot of people are scared of red, so I can pick the least red pieces. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really know. Yeah, I just kind of do it, but I'm not quite confident enough to just go and make something. I think the only piece I've tried that with was there's a little triangular table, the Triqueta table that I did. Right. And that was just messing about with those scraps. And it's a simple form. But again, it was the same thing. I had the diagram there, and then just instead of going to the computer, I went and just started cutting things.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool. So, Bryan, I know there's a lot of people in the chat that will probably be in this situation, myself as well included, trying to get to the point where we have people knocking down the door to get commissions. So obviously you started in architecture, which I'm assuming you had fantastic connections through, also through the woodworking skill. When you decided to stop architecture and go full time, was that like I'm going to drop everything and become a furniture maker and the rest will work itself out? Or did you already have potential clients, in your books that you could sort of pick up the phone and call?
It's funny, like from architecture, I would have expected to have done more work now from people that I had, ex-clients and things and contacts. I haven't really done that much for contacts that I've had from that. They've been busy contacts.
So I find that quite surprising because I would have assumed you'd be the next natural progression. But wow, okay.
Yeah, but no, I've done work for the architects that I used to work for Tandem. I've done stuff for them for South Melbourne Market, for their food court. That's pretty much it, to be honest. So it was a gradual progression out of architecture as well. I did about a year where I was just in my workshop on evenings and weekends. And then I got a few small commissions for Chapel Street traders in Melbourne. They wanted like a pop-up market, so I did these kind of milk cratey things that were a bit less rustic than most milk cratey furniture. And it was enough money to buy some more tools, and then I got a few. As part of the deal for doing the market furniture, I got a stall at the market.
Okay.
Made 3 or 4 pieces and went down there every Sunday for about 3 months.
Yeah,
and that's hard work. Like, it's this slow,
was it worth your while at all?
Do you know the funny thing was? It really was. Wow. I think I've made more contacts at that one market than I have from any other trade show, which is weird because
interesting.
The context, the location in Melbourne, it's quite a high-end area of Melbourne.
Yep.
It was quite young at the time, so this was 5-6 years ago. And now a lot of the people that I met at the market have actually come back to me. Like I sold a piece at the market to a woman who like literally came back 4 weeks ago, and bought another piece.
Wow, that's good.
Really nice to sort of have that kind of cycle with clients.
Well, that's one of the things that we've talked about on the show before. As someone who's trying to get into this full time, finding that first customer just seems impossible. And so, I guess for everyone out there listening, markets are a good place to make some of those contacts.
Do you know that you're not going to get direct sales, but you're gonna know immediately what people like.
Yeah.
Like if you literally bring 3 pieces along, watch which piece people look at, watch which piece
they touch. Listen to what they're saying about it. Like eavesdrop on them.
Pretty much.
When you were at that market, were you only exhibiting furniture pieces, or did you have kind of small pocket change items as well?
Nah, I decided not to do the pocket change items.
So it was just you had a display of some of your works, and that was.
Yeah, I think I had 3 pieces, and that was basically it. So I did that when I was still full-time architect. Then it was it a year later? I think it was a year later. I'd applied for a City of Melbourne business grant, and I'd kind of done it just on the premise that this will get my ass into gear anyway. I'll sit down, write a proper business plan, go through forecasts, try to come up with a few more designs and make me look more professional than I am. And it was a huge amount of work, but it was the best thing that I ever could have done, because at the end of it, I sat there with my document and I went, I'm making the right decision here. This is what I want to do. And submitted it, and there's a maximum amount that you could apply for with this particular grant. And I just went, if I get $2,000, I'll be happy. It'll be half a saw stop.
Yeah.
And they called me and said, you've been awarded the full amount. And I literally quit my job that day.
Wow, awesome.
That's awesome.
It was empowering, but it was scary. Yeah. Because it was something that I thought would take, another couple of years, another 2 years, and I would build up a client list and have a backlog of work. Because when I quit my job, I had no work lined up.
Yeah.
Like none, zero.
Because I imagine
the time was right.
You presumably you've got to pay some of that back, or is it just straight up?
No, it's just a straight up grant.
All right.
Money for jam.
That's decent.
There are so many council grants, especially arts councils in Melbourne and Sydney. If you're there, like, just apply for them.
That's awesome.
Even travel grants, like you can go and work in a workshop in Japan or Denmark or something like that, and they'll pay half of everything.
Wow.
This particular grant was a startup grant. You couldn't use it on salary, advertising, or rent. It had to be all capital purchases. So I was like,
done deal.
That sounds so tough.
Pretty much. But
Those
that
things
was
are hard
really-
to apply for too. Like,
they're pretty tricky.
yeah, I've looked into them myself, and I said, you know what, I don't need it that much.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
give up.
Do you know, I after applying for that one, I said to myself, right, every grant that comes up, I'm going to keep applying, and I
Wow.
haven't applied for one since.
I guess it's a really good way to keep your nose kind of in the nitty gritty of your business plan and making sure that it is constantly developing the way it should be.
Yeah,
But it's a lot of work.
it is. Yeah,
I'm
so
lazy.
that's why I haven't done it. but I'd say for anybody that's sort of looking to turn a side hustle into a business, it's such a worthwhile thing to do. You know, it's not going to be fun doing it necessarily, but just giving your business real numbers and a real face, and come up with a business name. Yeah.
Something we haven't actually touched on here that maybe people don't know is you won an award for your Pinch Noir bench. Is that, or was it the Pinch bench, or
The Pinch Noir, the black one? Yeah,
that was the black one?
Yeah.
So maybe tell us a little bit about that, and then I'm really interested to hear your take on the aftermath of winning this big award,
okay.
and how it's affected your business, if at all.
Have you turned into a rock star?
Oh, a complete rock star, yeah.
Got the chains and all.
So the Pinch Bench was the piece that I actually did at my university. That was my university project. So that was the first piece of furniture I ever made. And I still have the original in my house, and it's a little bit ropey, There's bits that are kind of maybe not the best, most clean cut joints, but it means a lot to me to have that piece, and I can see the progression of it. So I then knew that the awards program was coming up as part of the Vivid Awards, and I wanted to refresh the piece and give it a new kind of aesthetic. So I came up with the idea of doing a black and gold version. So the leg, which was previously concrete, was now electroplated brass, still concrete filled, give it like a structural anchor.
Yep.
And one of the first things I established in my business was that I was only going to use Australian timbers, and I was never going to stain anything.
I saw it on your website. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, right, okay, I'm going to get a black finish, and I'm going to get it blacker than black. How am I going to do that?
Yeah.
So then I investigated ebonization, and I don't know if any of you guys have done that, but it is hard work. Like,
No, I haven't done it because it looks
many
so time
variables.
consuming.
Like the humidity that when you put the steel wool in the vinegar and seal it, like the humidity that day, the temperature that day, there are so many variables. But and it was done on Vic Ash as well, which has quite a low tannin count. So I had to paint black tea onto the piece to of boost the tannins so that the steel wool would react. But yeah, there was a lot of time involved. But I entered it. I was like, I want a piece that has a real bling factor to it. I want something that, because back then there wasn't too much black furniture about it. Still, people thought of it as being a wee bit 80s.
Right.
And I was like, no, let's go something really sharp and blingy.
Yeah.
And it won the award, and I was genuinely shocked. Like I was really, really shocked. And it came with a reasonable cash prize, which was lovely. And all the press photographers are there, and then a week later, I'm like, oh, that was it. Got very little media coverage compared to previous years, which was a bit of a shame. I didn't sell the piece at the show. I sold it subsequently, and I've made a few more of them for other awards and traveling exhibitions and things. But it wasn't like an overnight, like, oh, I'm sorted now.
Yeah.
It was more just, it's a nice thing to say to clients, award-winning furniture maker. And it doesn't matter really what that award is.
It just looks good. No matter what.
It just looks good,
So did you said it was the Vivid Awards, right?
Yeah, the Vivid Award, yeah.
Now, is that an open competition, or so like anyone can apply?
It's a fully open competition.
Yep.
It's free to enter.
Oh, right.
Cool.
Okay.
It's free to enter for students and professionals.
Yeah.
I think you have to be, it's maybe under the age of 30.
Right.
No, it wouldn't be. I would have been over the age of 30. There is something in it, but it is open to professionals and students, and it's completely free. And there are cash prizes, and I kind of spent about probably 3 weeks entering every single awards that I could find online. I was like, right, I'm going to show clients that my pieces are award winning.
Yeah.
And it won that one. It won a Melbourne Design Award and was shortlisted for the Clarence Prize. And the Clarence Prize was probably the most important one to me, because the pieces that were submitted for it were pieces that I look at and go, wow, I didn't see my stuff in that kind of category alongside that sort of work. So to be shortlisted for that, to me, was more important than winning.
Yeah, for sure.
I see the point of view, I guess, of winning that award. There's 2 points of view, I suppose. I see that some clients would say, oh my God, let's go this guy because he must be awesome if he won this award. And then the other half of the clients go, well, I can't go to that guy because his prices just went through the roof because he's won this award.
That'd be me.
And so have you found there's been any way like that?
I don't really know, to be honest. Like with my pricing structure, I'll do the full, like kind of like your work, Joey, I'll do the full, complete, bespoke, one-off pieces.
Yeah.
But it's very, very hard to make money.
Yeah.
I find doing that way,
Yep.
You're constantly having to, what you're saying about your sliding table, like the amount of work that goes into getting something like that to actually work the way you want it to is huge.
Yeah.
So I have that as one line of my business and at a premium price point. And then the other line is pieces that I've made before, but I offer customization on them.
Right.
So, I'll make a pinch bench, but make it wider or longer and things like that.
Yeah.
And through the computer software that I use, it's just a matter of going into the model and stretching it, and it'll tell me the additional material costs. And that's pretty much all the client pays. It's going to take me the same amount of time to make it if it's that little bit longer or wider or whatever. But with the pieces, I edition them. So 49 is kind of my run.
Right.
Because there's my brother-in-law is a copyright lawyer in Canberra, and I don't know whether you've covered IP and stuff.
No, not yet.
But yeah, you get bugger all protection in Australia. Is the unfortunate thing about being a furniture maker as opposed to being an artist.
Yeah.
So I try to position my furniture as art. And I say 49 pieces, so 50 is the keyword takes over into mass produced.
Right.
Okay.
And 49, the piece will start cheaper, and then as it goes through the edition and nears the end, I put the price up.
And do you find that that structure has been how do you say, like a good structure to have for your business? Because it's something I've transitioned into doing with, this is my line, so Stance, for example. Yeah. And that's a standard piece. It has a set price for whatever material, and then as you customize it, it goes up as well. Because, like you say, it's hard to do bespoke one-off and make any money on it.
Yep.
So I'd be interested to hear how you...
I think it has, to be honest. I think it just makes you feel like... the client feel as though they are getting a proper bespoke service without necessarily getting a completely bespoke piece that nobody else has. They've just got a version of something that you already know how to make, and
it's both Jordan and Bryan. Something just kind of occurred to me. I've never really thought about it before. So, do you actually spell out on your website that this is the piece and it can be customized any way you want? Because I will do that. I just assume everybody knows that I can make anything. I can change it.
I don't spell it out because like I spell it out on my website. And so, for example, I had a lovely couple come through who found my website and decided to come in, and they gave me the job, but they were very perplexed that I could make it 900 mil wide. So, so you can modify it. I was like, yeah. I mean, I'm a furniture maker.
Yeah. I just assume people.
No.
If I'm going to be a furniture maker, I can make it whatever size you like. Make as big as your house if you want a dining table that big. But yeah, obviously it needs a bit more pushing along. That I can do whatever you want.
I think a lot of people aren't used to custom furniture service. They're used to, I'm going to go to this shop and what's in the shop is what it is. and it's like you kind of got to separate yourself from that mindset that they have and introduce them to the idea of, I can do whatever you want. If you want a bloody dragon head glued onto the end of this thing, I'll glue a dragon head onto it. You know, I will do anything you want. So yeah, I spell it out.
All right, everyone. What we might do, well, before we move on, is there anything else we want to quickly ask Bryan before we move on to a question?
I had some questions.
I do. So this kind of goes back to where we were heading earlier in the conversation. Your client set, I would have, after you said that you didn't take too many clients from your architectural firm, are your clients mostly commercial or residential, or is it a 50-50 split?
About 90% residential.
Yep.
Yeah, and then commercial stuff, I find it's too hard to compete price-wise against.
Yep.
Yes.
Carpenters that are just knocking up tables for restaurants. So I have done stuff for certain restaurants, but I will say, give me the, a speciality piece, and I'll make it amazing for you. But trying to quote on a whole restaurant or cafe job,
you can't beat it.
Not at all. I can't even get close. I'm just not set up to do it.
No, neither. Can't do it.
I kind of prefer residential. I like knowing that the piece isn't going to be wrecked.
Yeah.
I know that it's going to be with them for their lifetime, hopefully.
It's a whole other aspect to commercial furniture. It's not that it has to look nice. It's that 900 people a day are going to sit on this thing and rack on it and smash into it and
destroy it.
Yeah.
And in a month, it's going to look like crap.
And then in 3 years, the restaurant's probably going to change its image. They're going to get interior designers in. Everyone's going to paint it.
Yeah, because who would paint a nice, beautiful wood? Hey, Joey.
That's right.
Who would paint a door white when it's a nice, beautiful wood?
Only if I'm paid to do it.
I'm about to do my first ever whitewash, and it's breaking my heart.
Whoa. Whitewash isn't too bad.
It's not too bad because you can still see the wood, but I don't want to do it.
Do you put a name on all of your pieces?
Oh,
Bryan? Yeah.
I do. Yeah. I think it's. I don't know. I like to inject a little bit of personality into the pieces as well.
You make it Swedish?
One Danish, but no, I try to. I don't know. It's either a descriptive term about how the form was created, or I'll just pick a random word on the internet that kind of suits the piece.
It's a good idea.
Its character.
I think it's a good idea because it really inputs that you've put a lot of thought into it. Yeah. And it's not just that you've whipped up this table in your back shed. It's that you've designed this thing and you're proud of it enough that you're going to name it something and stand behind it. I think that's another level of good salesmanship as well.
Totally.
As well. Like I have, I've got a sense of. I'm Irish, so I've got a sense of humor, and I think a lot of real high designy people are very, very serious, and I like to have a bit of personality in my pieces.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, that's all part of the naming and the branding of them as well.
I did like the naming convention of everything, and when I rebranded my business to Periodic, I was like, I could name everything after an element on the table. And then soon after, I had a customer from hell. Actually, it was a client where I lost my fingertip.
Right.
Not the client didn't chop it off or anything.
No, it was just and then they were like a Steam Lab style coffee bar, and they named everything in their cafe after the Periodic table. I walked in there and I was like, this is trashy. I don't like this.
It's cheesy.
Yeah, I was like, I don't like this. This feels cheap, and just I did away with that concept.
All right, Joey, did you have any more?
No, I'm all good.
All right. What I want to do is I had a user submitted question from a while ago by someone called Ben Green. And I've been holding on to this for this show. So I'm going to read out the question as he's written it. He's also asked me to do a Scottish accent in parts, which I'm not going to just because that's going to destroy it. So it's a beautiful day. The sun is shining, yet it's a cool 18 degrees C. You've stopped for lunch and pull out an awesome cheese and ham sandwich. You're just about to take your first bite when a magical dolphin waddles in through your shop doors. He says, "Don't be afraid, for I am the magical dolphin Dave, and on account of your awesome podcast, I'm here to grant you one of 3 possible wishes. Please choose wisely. Option 1, no more wood movement. All your timber is perfectly stable and perfectly straight. You don't have to worry about it being warped from the yard, and you don't have to worry about wood movement in future designs. Option 2, no more dust. Your tools don't produce any kind of dust. Therefore, you don't need to wear any mask or worry about extraction. Or number 3, no more sharpening. You never have to sharpen again. Your tools will never dull. Which do you choose? So, John, let's head off with you.
Dust any day, because dust.
I was going to say the same thing.
I don't mind sharpening. It's nice and even. I think wood movement shows a skilled craftsman from a crappy craftsman. So being able to handle that, but dust is just dust.
Yeah, I agree. Joey, how about you?
Yeah. Jordan put up the perfect explanation. I think that's bang on. Like, get rid of dust. No one needs it.
Yeah.
Wood movement, I guess, is a tricky one, especially as someone who's not as possibly as skilled or experienced as you guys. Wood movement is a really tricky thing for me. Like, I'm still learning how to use my jointer properly to get rid of that, any movement that occurs during milling. So I don't know. Wood movement and dust would be a close one for me. How about you, Brian?
Dust.
Dust
have it.
Ben, it's a pretty simple
100% dust.
Not only from the fact that you've got to not breathe it in and clean it up, but then you could finish a piece of furniture on your table saw while you're cutting. That would be perfect.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
It'd be easy to use the wide drum sander then too. Wouldn't have to worry about dust extraction clogging up every 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Okay, well, what we'd normally do at this stage, Brian, is we talk about any videos or something that we've been watching during the last week. So if you've got something to add, by all means, that'd be fantastic. But otherwise, Joey, do you want to start with your suggestion?
So I had a message from Ian, who's currently in the chat. So thanks, Ian. So I got a message with a link to a YouTube. It's a YouTube video. I don't actually know what the channel's called, but the video is called Crazy Horse Dolly. And it is this American fella who has made, essentially, it's like a pyramid with wheels around the base, and it has a central post with a wooden dome on it. And you can lay down sheets of whatever, plywood, whatever you're working with, and you can just maneuver your sheet around laying down on this kind of little pyramid jig. And it sounds crazy and stupid.
But it looks so cool when he's using
it. When you see how it works, I was like, oh my God. So I actually emailed the guy straight away and said, you're in the States. Do you mind if I just copy your design? I can shout you out on my YouTube channel and people can go see you. He came straight back to me and said he's actually now developed an aluminium version, which he can ship very easily. And he's in the process of sorting out what it's going to cost to ship it to me, because he wants, I'd be his first international client. He wants me to have one. So in the process of getting one of those over to me, it's just still working out some numbers. But it's a very cool thing. Probably only useful if you have a larger shop. And probably my shop is on the smallest scale, I think, maybe that this would be useful in. But absolutely a back saver and multi-useful little extra person, really. It's like an extra person in the workshop. So
I watched that video and I instantly wanted to make one. But it got me thinking, the garage, like, mechanics chairs?
Yes.
I'm thinking if I just buy one of them, cut the seat off and extend the pole, I've essentially got the same thing.
Yes, but his one has a wide base.
Yeah, his would be
lay multiple sheets down on each edge of it, as well as on top. So go check it out. Crazy Horse Dolly.
Yeah, I want one.
All right, I'm gonna go next because I got an email from a guy by the name of Ian C, who's in the chat, and he also sent me a very interesting video. So Ian, I see you're giving us all some information. Thanks for that. So this is a guy who's he actually lives in an apartment which is amazing. And he wants to do woodworking. So he starts off by showing in the video that he's in his bedroom, and there's the whole typical joke about his wife, wanting to kill him for doing woodworking in the house. And he wheels in this, like, remember Inspector Gadget? Like this workbench with just all these bits sticking out of it, and he wheels it in, and he starts doing this montage of all these bits coming out and plugging in, and he's got a full-on workbench, table saw, everything. It is the most amazing thing. From there, he then goes on to show you the shroud that he's got on it, and he does woodworking in his house, in his bedroom, 99.9% dust free. It's just amazing. Cool. And it's one of those cool things where so many people are like, oh, I can't do woodworking. This guy has got around that. Any problem you can think of, he's got around it. So, yeah. Also, all the videos that we're talking about, there will be links in the description below. So yeah, have a look. Ian's just said too much time surfing instead of making. Well, thank you, Ian. So far both of those videos have been on point. So John.
Well, I didn't get an email from Ian, so thanks, Ian. Whatever. No, so I only discovered, so Philip Morley is a furniture maker I followed on Instagram for years, but I only just discovered he has a YouTube channel too.
Yes, just this year, I think.
Yeah, and it's only relatively small subscriber number yet now, but all of his videos are highly produced, everything I've watched anyway. But yeah, I really love what he does and puts out. His videos are a little bit more towards the, first starting out hobbyists in the way of we're making a sawhorse or let's talk about joints and things. But really cool channel and really good furniture designer too.
Yeah, cool. Excellent stuff.
But no specific video, just his channel in general.
Brian, any one or any channel or video that you want to mention?
I'm trying to think of any
designer, I guess.
A designer. I'll give a shout out to a fellow Irishman who's a little bit more established than I am, but Joseph Walsh Studio. I don't know if you guys are familiar with his
That
work.
name sounds very familiar.
It does.
So he does bent lamination is kind of his thing, but it's real complex curved bent lamination. It's the most incredible work. It looks like nothing else. So I was fortunate enough when I was back in Ireland last year that the day before I flew back to Australia, I just stumbled upon that he had an open day in his workshop and took my mum on a 6-hour journey down to Cork to see it. But I think not only the level of his work and the type of people that he has working for him, he's basically set up in his auntie's farm or something like that and built this unbelievable workshop, and people come from all over the world to work for him, and they live on site. Wow. This is not a big city. This is maybe 3 hours from Dublin. So when people like us in Australia, we consider ourselves to be isolated. There's a guy who's pretty isolated, but his work, majority of it is going to mainland Europe or the US.
Wow.
His chairs that he was making when I was there were 35,000 euros each.
Wow.
A set of 18 of them. And, it sounds a lot for a chair, and it is a chair, but I mean, this is an absolute one-off art piece. And they're making it somewhere where, how you can be based there. And
there's no Bunnings.
Yeah, there's no Bunnings. But yeah, there's no Bunnings and there's no clients there. And it is the most incredible setup. And if you ever get the chance, and they're in Ireland when he has an open day, because the rest of the time there's a gallery that's open, but it's a closed studio.
Right.
And yeah, I got lucky, and the woman that was running the tour kind of said, "Oh, you're a furniture maker," and I got to have a bit of a one-on-one with him and hang out in the workshop and chat, and it was very inspiring. So yeah, I thoroughly recommend checking out some of his work.
I've just popped the link to the website in the video description, so if you guys refresh the page, you'll see it there. Otherwise, check it out later. Okay, cool. Well, that's about the show. John, Joey, any other questions you want to ask Brian before we send him away?
Maybe just very quickly, Brian, you have some interns. How does that go, if we can do it in under a minute?
It goes pretty good. I generally try to take somebody on who doesn't maybe have that much experience in furniture making. I've only had women work for me as well, which has been pretty good.
Yeah, that's cool.
Their eye for detail has been out of this world.
Yeah.
I had an RMIT student that was in product design. I had a German, a very young German. She was 20, 21, and she came from one of the best furniture making schools in Germany. So it was me learning from her as well. So it kind of felt as though I was helping teach the design side to her, and she was teaching the making side to me. So it was quite a harmonious experience. It was really good.
That's a cool idea, actually.
Yeah. And then the girl that I have interning for me at the minute is a retired ballerina.
Wow.
Who it's a career with a lifespan, and you have to call it a day one day. And she just decided she wanted to stay in creative arts, but not stay in production or set design or anything like that. She wanted to be something completely different. So I think she did.
I can relate.
Yeah, I hear you've been doing it.
Get the hell out of the industry now, guys. Don't do it.
Yeah. So yeah, she just decided that she wanted to do woodworking, signed up to a woodworking school, did a few classes in there. And then I think it was Joey, you were saying about getting a mentor.
Yeah.
So she decided that that was a better approach for her than going to a woodworking school.
Yeah,
so she worked with 2 other furniture makers doing a day a week. And then she did a day a week with me, and she's learning, 3 different perspectives on every way of making something. So she's
cool.
Yeah, that is the best way to learn, I think.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in, and thank you very much, Bryan, for joining us on the show. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, it's been great to talk to someone who's winning awards. We had an award-winning furniture designer on our show. How cool is that?
That's our claim to fame.
So thank you. That's very cool. One more quick announcement before we leave. I just want to make a mention to everyone that we are doing. Myself, Joey, and Jordan are going to be down at Marlini doing a talk for the Wood Expo, and we're going to be doing a meetup at Brisbane just after that, all on the 5th of May. So obviously we'd love for you guys to come and join us at the Wood Expo. But if you just want to come have a beer with us, we'll be in Brisbane on the 5th of May.
Yeah.
That'd be great to see everyone.
I'll just give it a quick. Do you mind if I just do a quick plug as well?
Yeah, no, go for it.
I'm going to have my work in an exhibition with a few other makers, with Dan Poole, Damien Wright, Adam Markowitz, Laura McCusker, and Bern Chandley as part of Craft Victoria. That's going to be towards the end of April, beginning of May. So
where is that?
It's going to be in Melbourne.
Right.
Through Craft Victoria. But it's a really good group of makers, and there's going to be some really interesting work there. So it's going to be a free exhibition. But yeah, just stay tuned on my Instagram.
Not sure when
Not sure exactly when. End of April.
And lastly, on the 14th of April, I'll be at the Perth Wood School on their open day. So come down and say hello there.
Cool.
Yeah, if you're in the Perth region or if you want to travel.
We don't get many in Perth, so it's worth coming down.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks again, everyone. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Thanks very much for stopping by and joining and being part of it. So we will see you all again same time next week, 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time on a Thursday. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.